again, these are top caliber players, and for these players too, they don't often get to sit down across from other TCG champions, and so for them, in terms of honing their game, Aaron Rubin, a Magic pro, sitting down against Bobby Brake, a Kaijudo pro, it allows them to improve their game as well.
All right,
but here we go.
We are off right there. Popsicle hitting immediately, and we've got the Steamboat Willie Lorcana official mat. That's amazing. I don't think that might be the first time I've seen this mat in actual play. Like the thing is so hard to find.
Steamboat Willie mat?
Yeah. I've seen the Stitch one before, but I've never seen the Steamboat Willie. So there you go.
That was the one mat when Chapter 1 came out. I told Liam, I was like, I want the Steamboat Willie mat. We still do not have it.
Alas.
It was so hard to find.
So we are off. Everybody who's seen this deck knows Popsicle is a great turn 1 play. Allows you to draw a card, but really what it's doing, it's not often used for. It's sometimes used for healing, but oftentimes it's used as an engine or feeder for Flaversham. And so getting that on the board, just sitting there waiting, is not terrible.
And a little Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, go ahead and pull up Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh is another card that allows this deck to ramp. And again, what this deck is really trying to do is get cards, increase the ink advantage in the inkwell. So this is another card that provides you an ink by questing, and then it's similar to Fishbone Quill. You can put any card down. So again, it's allowing you to build up that ink advantage.
Okay. Now it's interesting because this one just says put a card from your hand and the inkwell face down. Because we saw another card similar to that yesterday, but it was decided that no, it had to be an inkable card.
That's Bell, yes.
Okay.
And the wording crucially is different.
Okay.
Ink an additional card per turn is very different than put a card from your hand in your inkwell face down.
Okay.
No, and that's a good point. Like it's something that some people have trouble tracking between the two.
Yeah. Now, but we have official judges here that will make sure everything is on the level and good to go. There is Tragic Beast. He's so sad. He's so sad.
Interesting. We saw a Fishbone Quill. I talked about how important it was, and then we saw it go into the inkwell. So I am wondering if Kris is sitting on some uninkable cards. The Fishbone Quill had to go there, and the Beast is played to draw some more cards to get some more inkables. That might be the case here.
And I want to point out, too, that Tragic Beast, you see that a lot, the Tragic Hero, but he's actually looking at a fire. And maybe he's sad because he lit something on fire. I don't know. It just, what is he doing up there?
There's a mob down below ready to storm the castle.
All right, Kris with the early lead up 4-1 over Aaron right now. Let's see here. Forbidden Mountain in chat says, can we give a shout out to Aaron for the way he inks?
Yeah, we actually did this yesterday with Aaron too.
Yeah.
It's
Aaron's like a caster's dream, very clearly plays his cards out. He has nice big dice so you can see how much their hit counters are at. And we really appreciate it on this side of the table.
And I will say, it behooves every player playing the game and people watching to have an accurate understanding of what the board state is. The number of ink in the inkwell, the hand size, all of that. Some people like to say there's some gamesmanship to deceiving your opponent as to what you have available, but I really don't think that's the case. I think if everybody understands cards in hand, understands what's in the inkwell, it helps everybody make better decisions. It just makes for a better play experience. And so we see this with Kris too. I mean, even Kris laying out his ink the way that he does across the bottom where they're separated, I think is very, very good. I know it's a common habit to kind of stack them, and with these sleeves that are monocolored, that really does disguise what the resources you have available. And so it is nice to see both players playing in a way where the information is clearly available.
Now, Liam, is there any particular reason to use a colored sleeve like that as opposed to a clear sleeve? Because the art on the back of these cards is actually really, really nice, and I play with entirely clear sleeves.
The biggest reason would be, the reason you use sleeves and you use sleeves of a certain color is to avoid marked cards, to make sure that every card is not marked.
Okay.
And when you play with clear sleeves, the one issue is that if any of your cards are damaged in any way, or if they're faded, or if there's a ding or anything like that, then that's considered a marked card. And so sometimes, especially when you're playing games with cards that are older, cards can have some damage to them. And so people are in the habit of using sleeves that are not see-through so that we can ensure that they're all uniform.
Wow, I never even thought about it, but 100% that makes sense, especially in a tournament environment like this. You don't want to keep everything on the level, so.
And I did hear earlier today, we actually had a player who had some damaged sleeves. He had to run out to the convention floor, get some sleeves, sleeve his deck. So I think, those conversations that the judges were having last night about sleeving and that sort of thing, especially as we've gotten to the top 16, the judges are really taking a look at those sorts of things, making sure the decks are uniform and the like, so that we have an even playing field.
You're looking at a Hades there?
Yeah, can you pull up Infernal Schemer real quick? We'll pull up Hades. We'll see him. So Hades is on the board. Interestingly, it's an interesting time to play Hades because the targets there are not that juicy, I guess. But I think one of the things that this deck wants to do, this Sapphire Steel deck, is eventually to use a whole new world. And so these cards, that are in your hand will end up being discarded. And so to get them on the board now, as they're kind of beefy, they have a lot of willpower, so they're difficult to move, but they quest for 2 lore. Kris is clearly trying to apply some lore pressure here before eventually he forces a discard to draw a whole new hand. So why not play those big cards early, get some lore before you have to reload.
Wow, look at the amount of ink on the table already. This is out of control. So wild. So again, I see people in chat. We are live right now from TCG Con down in Houston, Texas, watching our final 8 players right now. We've got Aaron versus Kris in this matchup here right now. We got 2 legendary Hades on the board. I think I still need to collect those. Kris making a good push right now at 11 ink or 11 lore to Aaron's 2. Aaron's got plenty of ink on the table though. Counted for us. Looks like 9.
Yeah, and so, when you're playing against
10, actually,
the Ruby Amethyst control, one of the things you're trying to do is, be prepared's an option. Multiple be prepareds are options. And so you want that opponent to be prepared at a time of your choosing. If you are forced to overextend and that be prepared comes out, then the game may be over for you. So you need to put on just enough pressure. You need to increase your lore count, perhaps slowly, but to get to a point where that opponent is forced to play that be prepared, maybe before they want to, and then you have the tools at your disposal in order to rebuild your board. And that's what Kris is doing here, is just trying to apply that little bit of pressure.
I just want to show Aaron with the flex, playing the Enchanted Lady Tremaine right now.
Yeah.
And I believe Aaron has a mostly foil deck, too.
He definitely has a tricked out deck, for sure.
It looks very impressive on camera. Thank you for that, Aaron.
Yes. It is so cool to watch a competitor come to an event like this and drop an Enchanted.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm eyeballing. I'm like, oh, man, I don't know if I should buy another. They're like, oh, I've got 8 in my deck right now. I'm like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah, so somebody pointing out, and I think this is true, like Ruby Amethyst has really kind of got the edge here. A lot of cards in hand. We have the ink to play Be Prepared if necessary and some of the high-end stuff, and the board state looks pretty good. Putting on some pressure with lore here. The one thing that Kris has available, I'll point out, is Beast, which can sing a whole new world. So with the number of ink at disposal, as long as there's no damage applied to Beast, if there's a whole new world available, Kris can use it to restock his hand, and then with the ink available, perhaps play some other cards to get an advantage. Unfortunately, one of the cards that Kris uses endgame to deal with an opponent's board is Hades, which can send any character to the opponent's inkwell. But we've seen 3 of those already in the discard pile, and so that's not going to be an option likely in these later turns.
All right, we got another popsicle hitting the board right now.
So Liam, with how much Aaron has on the board right now, is it something that he probably wouldn't want to play the Be Prepared because he has so much and Kris doesn't have a ton on his board?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Be Prepared right now is not ideal for that player, but it's a nice insurance policy. Like, it feels really good to have it in hand and know that you can play it any time. Although, I'll point out again, like, that Be Prepared is going to be discarded if Kris manages to hit his whole new world, which I'm assuming he's digging for right now.
All right, and it feels like, Aaron's only got 4 cards in hand at the moment. With all that ink, too, it's like, he's got to be careful. He doesn't Be Prepared, then he has nothing to play, so. All right, Here we go. Looks like we're about to get some questing. And Aaron jumps up to 16 lore. Throws out, okay, and we've got a goat on the table. Aaron's up to 17. There's a bounce. Bumps it up to 18. I'm assuming we're about to see the goat again. There's the goat again, and then Maui should push him over the. No, Maui has no lore. That's right.
That is game, really. The goat represents 1 ink when he's removed from play. So whether that goat is banished or not, it's going to quest next turn and or be removed. And so right now, I don't know that there's any out for Aaron.
Yeah, at this point, I think our blue steel, our Zoolander, isn't going to have a good time.
Yes.
Just checking out the stack of ink.
Trying to see what he can do.
There's the Hades, removes the goat, and that's the game.
All right, there we go, Aaron.
So, I want to talk about something real quick, if you don't mind. This is fun. So, in these 3-game sets, there's kind of a mental game that happens between games, because what happened in the last game or last round or whatever can kind of sit with you and kind of change your approach to a game, whether you want to or want it to or not. Mm-hmm. So, for example, in this game, I'm not sure what Kris was digging for, but I'm speculating, with the ink advantage he had at one point and with the lack of cards, he really wanted to draw a whole new world and use it to restock his hand in order to, and probably sing it with Beast in order to, have some more tools and rebuild his board state. But he didn't get it. So this is a whole game that Kris went without a whole new world. So now, let's talk about this coming game and how that affects his decision-making.
Okay.
I think in decks that want to run Whole New World consistently, I think oftentimes players, I think that the wrong move oftentimes is keeping a Whole New World in your opening hand. Mm-hmm. Even though it's a card that you need to have, you often don't want to keep it for 2 reasons. One, it's uninkable, so it reduces your options, and you can't play it till turn 5, unless you're playing a Singer deck, which you can play it earlier. But 2, you don't want to draw into a second. Because if a Whole New World, playing multiple of those in a game is critical to your game plan. If you have one in your opening hand, and you draw 4, 5, 6 more cards before you play it, and you draw into a second, now you're discarding one of your Whole New Worlds, and that's 2 gone. And now you're hoping to draw one of your other 2 for the later game. So keeping it is oftentimes not the best play.
Okay.
So now we have a scenario where Kris just went through an entire game, never got a Whole New World. He gets a Whole New World in his opening hand. Is he now more tempted to keep that card, even though he knows he shouldn't?
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not. Now, pro players can avoid some of those thinking traps, perhaps, but perhaps it affects the way he thinks about his opening hand. So that's why some of these 3-game sets are really, really interesting, because what happens in one can ripple into the next in terms of how you think about the game and your approach.
Liam, what is it like, in sitting in Kris's shoes, you were playing against a Magic professional player in the top 8 of a tournament that had over 100 players in it. Is there a level, if that were you, is there a level of intimidation there? Is there a level of being honored that you now are playing against a professional Magic player in the top 8 of this tournament? What is that like?
I think at this level, all of these players are very, very good. They've probably played in a lot of these tournaments, and I don't think any of them are intimidated necessarily by, their opponents. Some might be, but in general, I think these are all very good players and they're confident. What was your second question?
What is it like? Because I know you had an opportunity to play, I think, against Bobby in a tournament, maybe at one of our
I did.
local game
I did,
stores.
actually. Yeah. I did. I won't say how it went.
I was going to say,
I don't want to.
I imagine how it went.
It went different. It was fun. So here we have Nowhere to Hide. So we'll get back to gameplay. But I do ask the question. I do want to address it because there's something else I want to mention when it comes to playing a pro player. So here, Kris getting information. He gets to look at his opponent's hand, and really, at this point, he can take as much time as he needs since this round isn't time to stare at what's in there and kind of think about what this means for Aaron. So one of the things that Kris is doing, being the talented player that he is, he's looking at Aaron's hand and he's staring at it, and he's envisioning Aaron's next 2 or 3 turns, because he can tell pretty much how Aaron's going to play based on that. And what that does is, if Aaron deviates from that script and does something different, then probably the most optimal play is given that hand. It tells Kris, it can give a hint to Kris as to what Aaron drew, and why he may be changing the expected script, which is great.
Wow, that is a card I would never play because I am not intelligent enough to understand. I can't see the 3 or 4 steps down the line. I'd be like, ink, and that would be it. That would be my usage of Nothing to Hide, unfortunately. Judy Hopps on the board.
Judy Hopps on the board. Judy Hopps gives you card draw if you can leverage items that are in play, but nothing there for Judy to utilize. So she's on the board, but didn't get the payoff from her, unfortunately.
And she gets 2 lore.
She does get 2 lore.
Not nothing. How dare you speak ill of Judy Hopps? She's an officer of the law. We got
Right.
Smash taking out Mini.
Smash the evasive. Again, that Ruby Amethyst deck is capable of being a little more aggressive, and Mini is one of those cards you play early and just scoop up 2 lower turns, so smashing it, Kris is happy to do at this point.
Okay, let's see here. Aaron dropping some ink and playing, thinking, looking, playing.
Nice.
Rabbit.
The rabbit.
Gotta love the rabbit.
So here we go. I do think, here, as we talked about before, I do think Kris, hopefully he's drawn a whole new world that's available, or he has some cards that'll help him get to it. What I do think he also wants to do here at some point is play a Winnie the Pooh or a Fishbone Quill. There
And
it is.
there's Winnie the Pooh.
Which will allow him to gain that ink advantage. Now, unfortunately, he's got 2 cards in hand. So Winnie the Pooh, great card to have on the board for him. But if he can now leverage this into a whole new world, giving him a whole new hand, that it will allow him to use Winnie the Pooh to start to build that ink advantage.
There you go. All right. Rabbit on rabbit crime there. And then I believe the llama finished off the rabbit. They're thinking about it.
I was supposed to say, I feel like this game is a little bit more methodical than we
Yeah.
saw the first game.
Oh, I
Like,
feel like the
for-
first game every time in these competitions, these matches, it's like, oh yeah, okay, they'll kind of like blast their way through it, and then they
Exactly.
start feeling each other out. It's like, okay, well, I know you're gonna go after this, and then I'm gonna come for you. And,
Right.
All right, Yabrizi in chat, seeing the llama, very excited for that. The llama meta.
Yeah. Here we go. Quest. Let's see if we get an extra ring out of that. There it is. So putting that down there, there it is, and a whole new world. I think that's, in those turns, that's exactly what Kris wanted to do.
Wow.
Get the value out of the cards in his hand, and then whole new world.
So would there be a reason that Aaron was showing his hand off, or?
Yes, so that's a great question. So the cards in the discard pile are public information,
Okay.
or they're readily accessible information. And so Kris is very interested to know what Aaron's discarding and getting rid of,
Okay.
because that helps him track for later. So, for example, Kris now knows there's 1 fewer Be Prepared available to Aaron.
Okay.
And so as he's thinking about whether he's going to overextend or not on the board, he knows that Aaron has 1 less available to him to play.
Very nice, very nice.
Good afternoon.
And Aaron just being a really transparent player.
Yeah.
Like, you see that in his inking, you see that in how he holds his cards. Like, I just feel like he's always very open and wanting to make sure that his opponent understands, what he has going on his side of the board.
All right, and Aaron with his first lore with a goat there. Yeah, it is nice to see Aaron like playing a game and making it very easy for his opponent to see kind of what he's doing, and also for what it's worth, it makes it very easy for
us,
for the casters to see what's going on as well. We very much appreciate that. So if you're someone at home right now and might be playing in a tournament that may be casted sometime in the future, maybe by us, maybe by the Illumiteers and me, that would be great. Keep that in mind because it makes it extra friendly. And then when we recognize you, we can call you out. Okay.
So there's the Fishbone Quill. We're seeing it now, and I think we would have liked to see it a little bit earlier, but it's great that it's on the board for Kris now. Unfortunately, the board state, Aaron's got, a significant number of lore on board, goat representing, another lore when it's removed. And actually, I shouldn't say significant. I thought that Minnie Mouse was the evasive one for a second, but it is not. So that's good for Kris.
She's classy.
She's classy. So not a significant number, but a decent number of cards on the board. Kris does have the tools to deal with it, though. He does have the songs. So really what he's looking to do now is every turn, ink an extra with Fishbone Quill. There's Grab Your Swords, which is one of the cards that Kris can use to deal with the wide board state. Kris pointing out, for us, 2 damage each. And there they go. So and that's the way this deck is supposed to function. Eventually, once the whole new worlds start to cycle, you get an extra ink every turn with the Fishbone Quill because they're cards you're maybe discarding anyway, and then you're drawing into songs that you can use and removal that you can use to deal with your opponent's board. And so at this stage of the game, if the whole new worlds, if we see 2 or 3 of them, it starts to feel a bit oppressive.
All right.
And on that note, I know Forbidden Mountain, Dan, who's in the chat, made a comment earlier that he thinks if this deck were more commonly played, I would be as hated, I think, if not more, than the Ruby Amethyst deck. And if I misquoted you, Dan, let me know.
All right, we got the Lady Tremaine, the Enchanted Lady Tremaine again. And we have a pretty much clear table now.
Yeah.
Just the one character card up on the board. But we got a lot of ink, and I believe Kris is sitting on another whole new world, so.
Still a lot can happen.
Yeah.
So I do keep talking about Aaron Rubin, but just because I know his background, and I'm going to go ahead and drop here in the comments. You can take a look at his MTG, some of his tournament finishes. I don't think this is all of them, but these are the ones that are tracked in MTG Goldfish. So, you know, that's a bit of his MTG pedigree.
Okay, we got Sad Beast on the board, so that's going to be an extra card draw unless Aaron can do a little bit of damage to him. Just throw a rock up on the balcony or something, just enough to hurt him a little bit. All right, there we go. Be prepared, right there.
There it is. So that's 2 used. It's important to track that kind of thing in this deck. Now, so here's an example of where we talk about the inkwell. Like, we have 7 ink, now 8 ink available for Aaron. I would love to know how much ink is in Kris's deck to talk about what kind of ink advantage Kris has, because he has a significant one, but difficult to see at the moment. 1, 2, 4, 5.
All right, so we got another whole new world.
Now, there's one comment here. Now, Kris ideally wanted to sing that with Beast this turn, but Aaron, tracking that's a possibility, and plus you want to get Beast off the board anyway, removing it, and so Kris is forced to play it with 5 ink. Would have been a lot better setup had he been able to sing that with Beast.
All right, Kris getting a chance to look at Aaron's hand, kind of figure out what they're going to be doing. See, I would get nervous. All these stacks of cards, like which one is my hand, which one is my ink. Like I would get mixed up at some point. I know, but that's just me. These guys are pros.
That is true. I think it's a common thing we see nowadays with people using dice or some sort of hand counter to put on top of their hand when they put it down to mark it. Because in a competitive setting like this, the worst thing you can do is accidentally pick up the wrong stack. That would cause a judge call and all sorts of confusion and just bad feelings all around. So that is a technique I've seen people use.
Very great. All right, we got another Winnie the Pooh out there. More ink. And a Prince Eric.
And the ink advantage here is probably significant for Kris. Again, I can't quite see how much is in there, but I would venture to guess it's somewhere in the realm of 12 at this point.
There's an Ursula. So Kris is going to lose a lore for that. First Ursula we've seen today. Passed over. All right. So we are knotted up at 6-6 right now. Kris going through their mountain of ink.
7, 8, 9,
Do you think,
10,
Liam, it's just
10.
a matter of time before we see a bell come out, just to start that kind of quest engine?
That's exactly right. Like that's what Kris wants to do eventually. Is he wants to keep going, keep cycling, and just have so much ink that he gains control of the board using songs or Hades perhaps, and then play 1, maybe 2 bells. Once Be Prepared is no longer an option. Kris is very cognizant of the fact that Be Prepared is an option in this deck. He doesn't want to overextend himself, play his game enders early. So at this point, he knows that we've seen 3 Be Prepareds, 1 discarded and 2 played. And so the odds of a 4th Be Prepared being drawn are kind of low. So at this point, Kris is starting to think about, now that he's over 10 ink, getting a bell on the board to start to close this game out.
Like there's some conversation going on.
Oh, I heard a judge call.
So we went through the last few, we talked through the last few rounds of play, the last few turns, to try to recreate. We not only have the 2 players back there, we have our tech Steve back there, we have another judge back there that's kind of like watching this game. The official judge came up. All 4 of them kind of talked through what had happened in the last few turns, and we determined the number of cards that actually needed to be in Kris's hand. It sounds like that's why you saw Kris kind of pick up that card. I didn't see what card he was picking up from where I was standing back there, but he picked up that card to reestablish the game state, and it sounds like we're good to move forward.
All right, excellent. So play will resume.
And one note, we do have somebody in the chat who is at the table and notes exactly what Aaron said. Walk through previous turns and nothing's out of place, and we're all good. We're all good to go. We are cooking with Crisco.
And here we go. Aaron is back on the play, and we're resuming. So what is, when something like this happens, Liam, what is the mentality behind it? Can this throw your game off, like a pause like that? Because then your brain is no longer in sort of your strategy, is more of in the how do we react to what just happened here? Like, is this a difficult situation for a lot of times?
I mean, anything like this that pulls you out of your your focus, your mental state as you're focusing on the game state, it can throw you off a little bit. I will offer again, at this level of play, these players are both very, very good, and they know exactly what they're doing, and I'm sure that they're snapping back into it pretty quickly. But it can, because you're focused and now you're distracted. So
it's kind of like icing the kicker almost,
Yeah.
like it's throw it off. Hopefully, no one, as far as we know, no one's going to take advantage of it and do any sort of shady stuff. So.
No. And these players again are both very good, and I think they're probably again clicking again on all cylinders. Is that a mixed metaphor? I don't know.
Clicking again on all. Yeah.
Cooking.
Firing. I think firing on all cylinders.
Firing on all cylinders. Clicking.
It's meant to be an engine, I believe.
Yeah. All right.
Here we
Chicken
go.
ambitions. The crab. Okay.
Hey, crab.
The crab is a card that we've seen worked into these Ruby Amethyst decks a little bit more recently. I think it's mostly in there for the mirror, I think, to give mini an edge taking out other minis, but it does provide utility against any deck, allowing you to give one of your characters Challenger 3 when it both enters and leaves play. So coming to the board here, doing a little bit of work, but it is a card that I think we're seeing more of in these tournament settings.
Beautiful. All right, so right now, Aaron, just behind Kris, a 6-10 lead for Kris. Currently trying to hit that magic 20. There is that stack of ink.
Did you count? I missed the count.
I was not counting. Chat, were you counting? I'm sure someone was.
12 or 13, I think.
Sounds right to me. Just estimate, over 10. Kris is deciding what they're going to be doing next.
Oh, Cogsworth. This is one of the cards that can make this deck feel a bit oppressive.
Yeah.
Resist, is a mechanic that we saw introduced in set 2, and it just makes things difficult. You have to start mathing now and figuring out how much damage you need. And with Ward on Cogsworth, he's difficult to remove. And yeah. I will say, against Aaron, he has a lot of cards which banish characters which don't rely on damage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Cogsworth is a little more feel batty against another steel deck that relies on damage to remove characters. But nevertheless, not a card that Aaron is super excited to see on the board.
So 2 Cogsworth hit that turn, which means the non-Cogsworth characters are going to get +2 resist. All right. And the Cogsworth will both get +1 resist due to the fact that they actually aren't going to give themselves resist. So, still pretty impressive. All right. Looks like Crab is going after Hiram. And Snake bouncing that Crab back up.
So now, Mim with Challenger 7. Now to remove Flaversham, which would have survived except for that 1 damage counter, making it vulnerable to that challenge, overcoming that resist. But that's where we see the Crab paying dividends to this deck, is getting over that, helping to get over that resist. So again, a valuable card that we're seeing more of in this deck.
All right, so Maui with the Crab bonus, right, is
Indeed.
enough to take out Hades, even with the 2 resist.
Indeed. So the Crab doing work here. Crab doing a lot of work. Friend Zone Finn, there is a notice in the chat, the bracket is available. No, the bracket's not available. We'll bring you the bracket right after this game.
Yeah. Well, once we get down to our final 4, we will show you exactly the bracket.
Here we have Tinkerbell coming in, clearing a little bit of the board.
Everyone loves a big Tinkerbell. Okay, and the Cogsworth are both questing. Kris sitting at 16 now, so he has a win condition in front of him. Unless Aaron can do some damage here.
Yeah, and this is a tricky spot, I think. I think, yeah, clearly Kris has the lure to close out the game. Obviously, a Be Prepared would help, but we know there's only one of those left, which is what's giving Kris the confidence to push things a little bit. There we go with the Cogsworth going down. That helps feels a little bit better, but
Yeah.
certainly not enough to prevent Kris from closing out this game next turn.
So what do you think Aaron's looking for here other than that be prepared?
I mean, that's really the biggest answer. At this point, an Ursula actually could prevent the game win by Kris this turn, so putting that on the board, it feels a little bit better. Or a Maleficent to take out one of those characters there. Perhaps the Beast to avoid the draw would also be good. He's managed to remove 2 cards, so a Maleficent to remove Beast feels okay. But still, Tinkerbell questing for 2, putting Kris at 18 is really putting him within striking distance.
The dragon putting in the work. And I'll let it go.
Into the inkwell. Now, an interesting move to, so we saw it played instead of sung, which leads me to believe Tinkerbell is going to go questing to get that much closer. So at this point, Kris is going to drop, he's dropping some 2 lore characters, inviting Aaron to find a way to remove, multiple characters with an empty board this turn. And I think he's just going to do that, try to draw out some of that removal. But of course, as I highlighted before, Ursula will give Aaron a little bit of room to breathe by only removing 1. But still, 6 is a lot of lore to climb back from at this point, especially with Kris having the ability to refuel his hand with a whole new world potentially and providing a whole new hand of critters to deal with.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Kris is just 2 lore away. They got a win condition in front of them for sure. So Aaron has to do something here if they don't want to give up this match. All right, that is a lot of ink, though. Maybe something can happen. Doing some counting. All right, we got 3 ink, 5 ink, 9, what is that, 7 ink?
Magic 7?
Ursula,
No.
Ursula.
There's that. So Ursula does one of the things we need to do, reducing the lore by 1, meaning that 1 character cannot win the game by itself. So now we need to remove another character, and here's Maui to do just that.
That's an enchanted Maui.
Aaron loves bringing the bling.
Yeah.
So Maui on the board. Okay, so Aaron's done just enough to prevent a victory this turn by Kris. Kris pops to get the card draw. Nothing to hide. Let's see what you have available. Lady Tremaine.
Hand, Shadow, and a rabbit.
Yeah. Crucially, no, be prepared. So.
Yep. So Kris can pretty much load up the board and be like, all right, I might not win it this time, but for sure next time.
And here come all my things.
There's
Here's that
Belle. So she's worth 5 lore. Inking a Fishbone Quill. Questing with Judy, that'll put him at 19. So 1 away. Can Aaron pull out a miracle?
Yeah, I got to remove 2. So he has a Lady Tremaine. He can remove 1 character. Remove Judy Hopps. There's Rabbit. He's looking for answers now.
There's
Preferably
Be Prepared.
a Be Prepared on the draw.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow.
And
So,
he's thinking about it.
I imagine we're going to get questing from Maui and from Ursula, and then throw a Be Prepared down. What are the odds?
When you tell stories about games, like sometimes you can't make these scenarios up or convey the gravity of a particular draw.
All right, so Fox bouncing the rabbit back to his hand to get that additional draw. Smart play. And so I imagine we'll see the questing from Ursula, and then that Be Prepared drop. There's the, just singing it with Ursula.
And that's
Excuse
exactly
me.
what this deck wants to do, is sing it if possible, which will allow Aaron to build his board state again a little bit, possibly see a rabbit for another card draw.
It's 3 and 4.
There's the rabbit.
The rabbit. Okay.
Wow.
What a play.
Whole new worlds left. I think we've seen 2.
If I remember correctly, from when the judge was back there, I believe I heard that 3 had been used thus far.
So 3 in the discard pile. It's possible one of those was discarded to another whole new world, but it sounds like there are 3 that have been used.
All right, so we imagine Tremaine's going to be coming out next turn, but
yeah,
there's Tragic Beast.
So that's the thing. So Kris needs to be thinking about that Tremaine. He needs to dump out 2 characters. There's the second one, which makes things a lot tougher for Aaron. So wow, that extended the game, but 1 lore away means Aaron has to be playing every turn defense.
Yeah. and then trying to think of some way to make up that gap, you know?
Now, so 2 characters allows you to get around 1 Tremaine. It doesn't allow you to get around 2 Tremaines.
Wow. Okay, 2 Tremaines take the board. Going Questin. There you go. The Rabbits going Questin. Puts Aaron up at 7.
This is a nail biter.
Wow.
Can Aaron pull out the miracle? I am shocked by this.
It is still hard. You know, 1 or 2 cards, an extra card draw to allow you to put 2 characters down. I mean, Aaron really is running out of removal answers here. We've seen Maleficent. We've seen all the whole new worlds. We've seen 2 Tremaines. There's the whole new world. Okay, that is exactly what Kris wants to play here. Exactly what he wants to play. All he needs now are a lot of characters.
Just flood the table with characters.
All the small characters to try to put this away. Now, Aaron, of course, still has some answers, and interesting. So, it looks like.
All right.
Let's see here.
Was there another Nothing to Hide just got played?
Yeah, and so interesting there, another Be Prepared. So I was tracking 1 had been discarded to a whole new world. We must have been mistracking that because I know we've seen 3 played, correct?
Yeah.
And so Aaron has another one in hand. So perhaps we missed, we didn't see that discard right, and it's the only explanation for that. So here we have a whole new world.
Teeth and Ambitions.
Teeth and Ambitions instead, yeah, that's true. So here we have another whole new world, so that's available to him. So now this is a challenge. This is going to be difficult to overcome. So what Kris needs to do here is play just enough small characters, 2, maybe 3, where Be Prepared is the only answer. And 2 characters at this point may do it. So just enough that the Be Prepared is the only answer to remove 2 ready characters. And if he does that and draws out the Be Prepared, then he can go wide and win the game. What's really hurting Aaron here is that he didn't build up enough lore early, because Aaron's showing 5 lore on the board.
7 lore.
No, 5.
Fight.
5 lore on the board.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize.
I have to separate you 2.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. God, all that ink. This is fascinating. It's just like, it's like the golf ball on the edge of the cup. It's like about to teeter in and doing everything in their power not to let it happen. This is wild. I'm just.
But Aaron's got a full hand.
He does.
So, one note, let's take a look at, well, actually, I have 2 notes. One note is, let's take a look at the number of cards in deck, which we just noticed. A Whole New World is a game ender. I think we've seen 3 played. If Kris draws another one, he's going to deck Aaron for the win, which we saw happen yesterday with a deck similar to this. So that is on the table. Second, let's appreciate for a second the lore advantage that Ursula gave to Aaron by playing it and reducing Kris's lore by 1. Sometimes we think of 1 lore reduction as not terribly much, or if I miss a quest on a particular turn, that's not a lot. And in fact, we've seen in competitive games here where players have missed a single lore quest early in the game, and that doesn't seem to make a difference. But here, we can see it does make a difference. So 1 lore, although it might not seem like a big deal at various states in the game, clearly the difference here between winning or losing a game in the top 8 of a major Lorcana tournament.
All right, so Aaron just quested with the 2 Tremaines, brings him up to 11 lore. So, can he pull this off? His brain has got to be on fire right now. Okay, got a snake.
Critically bringing Tremaine back.
Bringing
That's
Tremaine
why
back.
bounce is so oppressive. Those enter play effects.
Got a fox, got to bounce Tremaine back.
And I know what we're going to see next. Another Tremaine.
Did he pick up both Tremaines there when he bounced? Like, shouldn't there still be 1 Tremaine exerted on the table? Chat, shift 4. Oh, he shifted Tremaine. Oh, he shifted a Tremaine on top of another Tremaine. Okay.
And which gave him the ink necessary to do that. So
wow.
So it takes you by surprise because you don't often see a Floodborn shifted on top of another Floodborn, and sometimes people forget that that's an option. But to get those enter play effects, sometimes that's what you want to do. So thanks for catching that. That's excellent.
Wow, that is impressive. See, that's the big brain move that I would never. I'd be like, huh? That's, I would just pass out. If I was sitting across from someone who did that, I would just literally fall over and just be like, oh.
And I think he had just enough ink to make that play.
Wow.
So, yeah, with the double bounce. And again, that's why this bounce deck is so oppressive, because there's some very powerful enter play effects, whether it's Ursula, Maleficent, or the Rabbit, or the Goat. And the ability to play those multiple times in a game is so powerful.
We got a Baker Bulbasaur saying, is that a tidy board? Yeah, I know. Aaron does a fantastic job of keeping their board very, very clean. And Kris doesn't have a lot in front of him. So he's got a stack of ink, a stack of discard, and a smaller stack of drawing cards. So, again, I think we are out of a whole new world, right? I don't think we've seen that, because that would be game over for
It
Aaron.
would be. I thought there was one left, but yeah, I thinking about it, I think we may be out.
Man, Kris he's got it. At this point, Kris was so close. Kris has been sitting within 2 for the last 4 or 5 turns and just can't seem to get over that threshold. Is that going to be something that will mess with your brain and actually be like, what? I just can't. This is incredible. I'm assuming these guys are pretty steeled that they're not going to let that kind of stuff affect them. But
well, it does leave you looking back and saying, was there one more time I could have twisted? I will say, and the chat is pointing this out as well, Aaron is a professional player, and I posted some of his Magic finishes above. He's been piloting this deck for months now, fine-tuning it, practicing it, and he knows how to play this deck very, very well, what his outs are, etc. So it's what you're seeing is top caliber play here.
All right, so we got a Tragic Beast out there. Another Hades. I believe that is the at least third Hades we've seen this game.
So one thing that Kris is thinking through here, Kris, again, wants a Be Prepared to be played, because the scenario he's running into is now Aaron, if he managed to keep clearing the board, could win the game, in the next few turns with what he has in play. So forcing Aaron to rebuild the board in order to build up lore is a viable strategy, because Aaron has 4 turns left, four draws left. And so if Kris can force that Be Prepared to be played and force Aaron to rebuild the board, maybe Kris has 1 or 2 answers, then that's something he's thinking about.
All right, so he's questing for 3 right there. And also, this is where the Rabbit becomes a liability. Because if that Rabbit leaves the board, that's another draw that he's got to deal with, right?
That is true, but I do believe Rabbit has a May in it, so
okay.
And we can pull it up to be sure, but
Yeah,
I do think Rabbit doesn't require you to draw. So Aaron can make the choice to forego that card draw, which might be the best choice at this point.
So when you play, you may draw a card.
They need
Interesting.
to bold that word.
Yeah. Now the one I want to check too. Pull up Ursula real quick, because there is an Ursula in hand. Ursula allowing you to draw a card for lore reduced, and if that is not a May, that card also becomes a liability, and you may draw a card. And so yeah, so good. These cards giving the players the option to use that ability. So these are all Mays.
Okay. Once again, Kris's board is clear.
And Aaron is ever so slowly eking.
Yep, we got
getting closer and closer.
Ursula on the table. Kris loses another lore, so Kris is down to 18. Aaron now within striking distance somehow. This is remarkable.
Yeah, I do think Kris is thinking about the turn clock at this point. Trying to stall out this game if he can. I think it might be a bridge too far with maybe 1 or 2 cards on the pile. It might be viable, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, if Aaron has a goat in his hand, there is a win condition out in front of him right now.
That is true.
Yeah.
We like to say when you reach 18 lore, you are 1 goat away, and we're very close to that point.
Okay, let's see what Kris is going to do here. And Aaron basically has a ticking clock in front of him. So he has 3 more turns he can play, right? He has force draw on at least 3 more turns.
Correct.
And there's Bell.
And again, Whole New World's not available, but we know there's 2 Bells. And
right.
So this is what this deck is trying to do, is to close out the game with Bells. We're just seeing it very, very, very late. But he held these. He's had these for a while. He's held them in order to be able to play those for the clincher here. Inking Ursula there. Ursula, not terribly good offensively, but can sing, and also it's 3 lore. So keeping Aaron from getting that there. So now Aaron forced to answer. He has to remove 2 bells, 2 ready bells, and Jafar there for a little insurance against Lady Tremaine, perhaps. Also, 2-turn clock. So.
Okay.
And this is it, as Goon's pointing out. I mean, this is it. This is the moment where you're at the poker table and you're all in. This is where you're putting all your cards on the table, literally, and you're waiting to see if your opponent has the answer. Sometimes it comes down to this.
I've never seen poker where they draw all the cards in the deck, though. Like, we're out of cards. Sorry, that's it. There are only 4 kings in this deck, and you got all 4 of them. No more coming. All right.
I also want to point out, this is game 2.
Yeah. We got another one after this, you guys.
Maybe. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
this round,
to decide this round. Yeah, I mean, if Aaron pulls this off, that'll be game. But Kris is down a match to Aaron.
There are no be prepareds left.
And keep in mind, we've got another 7.5 hours before they kick us out of this building. So
let the stare down begin.
With a 3-hour drive back to Austin. Breezy, no time limit in top, right? Nope, no time limit right now. So they can take
so Kris
the time
is
they
waiting.
need. So Aaron is, I don't know if they're sitting back thinking about it. I don't know if they're discussing with a judge, maybe.
At this point, if Aaron had no removal available, this game would be over already. Aaron's taking a look, just seeing if there's anything he's missed in his hand. He might have the answer, and he's just thinking through how best to sequence it, or he may be looking for that one out that he may have missed. Looking at the lore totals.
All right, I feel like Aaron's already pulled out like 4 miracles. Can he pull out another one?
Miracle's an excellent play.
Okay. Someone in chat saying, my guess he's trying to work out if he can goat for the win. Possibly. I mean, that would take, 3 plays of goat. So a goat, bounce, goat, which is a sentence I never thought I would ever say in my life, but it actually makes sense.
That is true. I posted it before, but since we're all talking about Aaron here and taking a look at his play, I'm posting his MTG Goldfish player profile where you can see some of his Magic top finishes. This is not his entire resume, but it gives you a selection of the types of events that he's participated in the past. So, Aaron Rubin, definitely a player to follow in the Lorcana space.
Okay, what's going to happen here? Or 2 goats and a dragon, Mim Dragon would do it, right?
I mean, there's options, working out. So yeah, so that's a good point. So as the chat presented, there's really 2 options here.
Oh, there we go.
And Aaron looks like concedes. Just didn't have enough in the tank.
Wow.
Now,
again, we're watching the Aaron and Kris match in that bottom right. So very, very exciting matchup happening right now. We'll see who makes it on to the final 4.
1-1 too. So this is like coming down to the wire here.
Exactly. You don't get much closer than this. This is quite impressive. Okay, all shuffled up. Got to start drawing their cards after this. And watch the
I love this. When you shuffle 7 turns, you're 100% guaranteed to draw 5 uninkables. Good to know. Good to know.
That is facts right there. That is facts of this. What decks are left, though? Lewis, we'll figure that out after this game here. We'll know exactly who's going on to the final. Maybe we'll find out throughout this. We have a lot of people hitting us up on Discord and whatnot while we're playing along here. We're keeping an eye on the match itself. Let's see here. Looking 5. Looks like Kris mulligan 5. Drew 5 more. They're reshuffling. And we'll get on to this last game of this match.
Woo!
Between Aaron and Kris. 2 epic pilots. What do you call, not commanders, I guess. What would you say? So is it a pilot? Is that like who is in control of the deck? I mean, players would be the generic term, but
yeah. So piloting is a term often used in trading card games, and because it indicates what you're getting across is that the vehicle is important, right? So in racing, for example, the car that you're racing, the team that your team builds is important, and tuning it's important, and that's your deck. But the driver also matters, and you can have the best car in the world, but you put an average driver in there, and that car is not going to win a race. It's the same with decks, and so the term pilot is often used to kind of convey that, the person is playing that deck in a specific. They know how to drive it. They know how to use it. They know how to pilot it. And so I like that term because it does remind us that skill and experience of the player matters.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
not just the deck.
Well, like I said before, it's like if you put me in control of one of these decks, I would just ram it into a wall. Like I would not be able to do what these guys are doing right now. So, Aaron and Kris going at it right now this Sunday. Big game Sunday, as everyone knows. Big Lorcana game Sunday. Literally no other competitions happening today. Popsicle hitting the table.
All right.
Here we go.
Golly, I'm just too excited after the last match. So, a
Aaron,
little bit of lore.
Aaron taking that huge early lore lead of 1-0. And then immediately bouncing Mini.
Snake on the board, sneaking out a lore there, though. I think there it is. Good, and as we know, one lore can make the difference.
Yep, that's it. That was the one that Kris needed so early last time. That game, I wish we could, I wonder, we'll go back when we have this archived. I want to find out how much time there was from when Kris hit 18 lore to finishing the match. Like, I felt like it was like an additional 30 minutes of them just battling back and forth, and Aaron doing everything in their power to keep that board clean. All right, we got a crab on the table.
This is an interesting play. So, Crab's out early. Didn't do a lot of work as far as challenging goes, but I mentioned before that Aaron is very capable of playing this deck in an aggro fashion. I've seen him close out games before in previous tournaments very quickly, and so it is possible that what Aaron's game plan is for Game 3 after that grueling Game 2 is come out quick, get some minis on the board, perhaps Pan's Shadow, other evasives, and try to close out this game fast.
Yeah.
The other thing he's thinking is, a whole new world is a possibility, on turn, 4 or 5, depending on how the ink goes. So everything in his hand is going to be gone anyway. So if you have stuff that you can play on the board, may as well get it out there, as quickly as you can, so that, because you're gonna discard it anyway. Yeah. So why save the crab?
There you go. And so when it says, okay, on the crab flavor text there, it says when this card leaves play, chosen character gains challenger +3 this turn. So is this turn only when you are active, or does it remain until the next time around?
Okay, so yes, it's only for the turn that it's played. So it's if you played, it's your turn. All right, so Pan's Shadow on the board, which has evasive. It's one card that we see, I think, run a lot now for the mirror match, but it does have 2 lore. And so if the strategy here is get high lore things on the board early, try to put a lot of pressure on, then that's a card that is probably there for that reason.
Yeah, the Peter Pan Shadow art as well really threw me the first time I saw it. I was so thinking that maybe they were missing a character, like what is making that shadow, but it's like, oh, that's right, Peter Pan just kind of, he can make his own thing. Like, his shadow is separate from Peter Pan. It's an entirely different entity. Okay, Aaron up 3 lore to Kris's nothing at this point. 3-0. And we saw this, we got a rabbit there for another draw. That is inked. 2 going for questing. That's another 3 right there. Aaron at 6-0. I think maybe Aaron's learned from last time. He wants to build up that lore count before really getting into it with Kris.
But yeah, and you can pilot this deck in an aggressive way or in a control-y way. It's not as aggressive as decks built for aggro, but it does have some lower cost, high lore characters with 2. By high lore, I mean 2 lore in the early game.
Yeah,
so, Aaron's clearly thinking about trying to use the resources available to push that lore count. And again, with a whole new world, they'll be discarded anyway. But now, Beast on the board, that is a card that you don't like to have sit there, giving your opponent extra cards every turn. So Aaron's got to think about that as he's kind of using his cards to push the lore advantage.
Yeah, try to get some sort of direct damage on that Beast so it removes that card draw. Okay, Jafar comes out as well. Here we go. Kris picked up his first lore by questing with Hiram Flaversham. And Aaron here working his way up to the 7 ink to get to those Be Prepareds, as we know. Friends on the other side, being played by the rabbit, being sung by a rabbit. Okay. Kris cracking some knuckles. Very important. Keep yourself loose during these matches.
TCG Con attendees, that was an awesome empowering panel we had there.
All right, let's see here. How are things going out there? And again, we're down to this Elite 8, but I believe 2 of the matches have completed, at least maybe a third. We'll see how it goes. So we're still not sure exactly as far as the split might go, if they're going to do a split, or I think they said they would decide after they make a Final 4. So we'll see what happens after this. Okay, Aaron throwing out another ink. That makes 6 for him. And thinking about it. And what's he going to do with those?
So he's questing. So, one of the things that makes Pattern Shadow so good, it is used to give your characters evasive. Which I think the reason Pan Shadow is primarily used to give your characters evasive to deal with your opponent's evasive creatures. But in scenarios like this, where your opponent's not playing a lot of evasives like Kris, it does give Fox evasive. So now, Madam M. Fox can quest or challenge and is immune from challenge in return.
All right, there is the questing for 2 with the Shadow. But that beast is still active, still undamaged, so it will get an additional draw for Kris. The nervous shuffling still happening.
Players thinking through their options here. I do see, Kris sitting with a bell in his hand, which means, if he does a whole new world anytime here soon, he's getting rid of one of his endgame cards, which is fine at this point. But again, Aaron doing a good job here, like pushing the lore count. I think that was definitely in his strategy. Possibly didn't get the ideal draw, but really what he wanted to do is scratch out every lure he can in the early game here. Because when you get to a certain point, Kris has to start responding to his board state. And goats, always make the game a challenge for your opponent. As soon as Aaron pushes, his lore count, to 13, 14, every goat that Aaron draws represents 2 lore. And Kris has no way to reduce his opponent's lore. So if this game does turn into a long, grind, again, if you manage to play 3 goats throughout the game, that's 6 lore potentially that you can get without having to keep anything on the board. So Aaron's looking to kind of get up there to that threshold to allow the goat to kind of close things out if necessary.
And so with the 7 ink, I imagine, we got Ursula there. So Ursula's going to knock off a lore from Kris. And that also represents a Be Prepared, able to be sung next round. And that's 3 lore for Aaron, so up to 11. So Aaron's not messing around this time. He's shooting for the lore. Doesn't want to get stuck behind the 8 ball, so to say.
Yeah, that's a good point. And a good point on Ursula. What a lot of these control decks like to do is rather than being forced to play the Be Prepared in turn 7, is getting Ursula on the board earlier so that Ursula can sing, leaving your ink available for, follow on characters. So
yeah.
But I do think at this point Aaron is happy to keep questing with his evasives to try to drive up the lore, but clearly letting Kris draw an extra 2 cards per turn is not palatable if we can do something about it.
All right, Hades coming out.
Hades coming out. I have a feeling we know what he's going to target, and there it goes. Kris wants to get it off the board anyway because that's 3 lore, but also removing the singer option, or the singing option.
Hades just being so rude. Okay, he's going to quest with his beasts.
drive up the lore count again. I think part of this is, yes, I want to get some lore, but he's starting to smell the possibility of a be prepared, and so why not get that extra lore while you can before your board is cleared.
Just to repeat one more time, we will be having our WWE guest panel at 1 p.m. on the stage. If you have any questions you would like to ask the wrestlers,
All right.
if you
Count
have
them
any
out.
questions you would like answered, or just some things you've been mulling over your whole life, there's a handsome gentleman named James.
That is going to be friends on the other side.
Questions and ask them to the wrestlers as they get up. Thank you.
I imagine that we're going to see a questing from, there you go, there's that puts him up to 13. And there's the 7 for the be prepared.
There's the be prepared. So it is interesting. I do think, I don't know what's in Chris's hand completely, but I do think, so I do see a whole new world. So it's interesting here because, I'm sure Kris is thinking, that Aaron, if a be prepared is drawn early in the game, is waiting, saving it, waiting for the right moment. If you think he has it, a whole new world is an option to try to remove that card. It does recharge Aaron's hand, but it's there to get rid of the be prepared if you think that your opponent's holding it. So that is one way that be prepared can be used to kind of get rid of combo pieces or key cards. Kris choosing not to pursue that option. I think he had a card advantage due to Beast, and so was happy to sit there with some extra cards and draw out that be prepared the old-fashioned way, but that was a play available.
All right, we got Cogsworth on the board. Again, this giant stack of ink, and there's Belle. So I believe we have crossed the 10 ink threshold for Belle. So she's going to be worth 5 lore for every quest she has. So Aaron's going to want to get rid of her as quick as he can.
Yeah, and he does have the options. We see some of them there. Maleficent Dragon going to the Inkwell.
There's 6 for Lady Tremaine's. Got to pick one.
Choosing the Belle instead of the Cogsworth and Lady Tremaine, it doesn't matter. There we see again the shift on top of it. So with 10. Yeah. I was mathing right.
Yeah,
4 plus 6.
God, that's such a clever play.
4 plus 6. Yeah, with the shift, it allows you to get 2 Lady Tremaines out for cheaper. And there's a whole new world allowing hand recharges.
Yeah.
Now, Aaron again
probably helped Aaron actually because he was down to 2 cards in hand.
Well, I do want to point out again, that the power of GOAT, in this matchup. Now that Aaron is at 13 lore, assuming he plays 2, maybe 3 goats, every goat is at least 2 lore. So if this game is drawn out, every time he manages to get a goat on the board, getting 1 ink closer, being at 13 makes you comfortable in that regard.
Yeah, I've got a feeling Aaron's feeling pretty good about right now. After that last match, maybe Kris is just exhausted, just mentally drained.
I mean, there could be. There are, Kris has some plays, but, there's just a lot of removal in this Ruby Amethyst in the match. And now that there's a lot of ink available, it's going to be hard for Kris to build a significant board presence. Really what he wants to have happen is, ideally in this scenario, Tinkerbell sticks around for this turn. I was waiting for the removal. Tinkerbell sticks around for this turn. If he has another whole new world, singing with Tinkerbell leaves all his ink available to then play whatever other answers he draws. So that is an option, because really he wants to hope Aaron doesn't have a whole new world and start to build up a bit more of a board. But
I imagine we're about to see Tremaine get bounced here. There's the snake, and then there's the bounce, which puts 2 Tremaines back in his hand. Again, because of the shifted card. Wow, what a clever play. That is so cool. I'm so happy to be here watching these top-level players play this game. Okay, we've got 5 ink left. Playing 3, playing 5 to drop Maui.
Yeah, as Tumpaki pointed out in the chat, allowing Lady Tremaine to remain on the board if there were answers is a risk because of just that. Returning 1 Lady Tremaine to the hand is dangerous. 2 is just unpalatable. So even though it feels bad to send 2 ink to your opponent's inkwell, it does. The reward is you don't now have 2 Lady Tremaines, which can be played both in the same turn.
Yeah.
Now sitting in your opponent's hand.
All right, so Kris, the tables have been turned. It feels like Kris is now trying to work their way back.
Another ink into the inkwell leads me to believe we may see a whole new world here shortly.
It's a quest.
Singing Let It Go on the Maui.
Okay. So Maui goes away. Tink is now vulnerable.
And a whole new world is played.
All right, yeah. So discarded the hand just off screen.
So doing the be prepared tracker, I think we saw one discarded there. So
do I have to add that to my suite of tools here?
We may need
Man.
to. So I know we have 2 in the discard pile. We may have 1 more. I'm not sure. And I know we've seen 2 whole new worlds played. But again, we can't 100% be sure that one of them didn't get discarded. So.
And I do see Lady Tremaine in Aaron's hand already. So. Here we go. Let's see what Kris can do. See if they can do anything to stem the bleeding. Hades comes down. And Hades is going to banish, or Inkwell the rabbit, which gets another draw.
And a shiny Quell.
Ooh. So much ink.
And this is what, again, this deck wants to do. What the Quills do, every time a whole new world is played, you're discarding your hand anyway. Mm-hmm. And so the Quills are partially there because as you're getting ready to do that discard, you can throw all of your extra cards in your Inkwell to give you that extra ink advantage before you draw a whole new hand.
Okay, so going questing with the snake, which puts, attacking with the snake, excuse me, knocking out Eric. Lady Tremaine is going to force another removal, and by goes Tink. Snake bounces Tremaine, throws down another Tremaine, and now Kris is looking at an empty board.
That's one of the reasons that Tremaine is just so good in set 2 and why it really took this deck, to the next level. One reason is because it allowed you to get around mechanics like Ward, forcing your opponent to banish their own characters, which made Cusco a lot less powerful against this deck, or cards like it. But the other reason is because in this bounce package, you get those enter play effects multiple times, and it's just good.
Yeah, because in your head you might be like, okay, my opponent can only do this, and it's like, oh no, they can do that multiple times.
Yep.
So
here's a whole new world, and like I said, the Fishbone Quills, getting rid of those extra cards, allowing Kris to get that ink edge, and trying to draw for some more answers.
Fingers crossed for him. But you're looking at, what is that, 14
11,
ink.
12. So 12 ink that are now ready for Kris to use, if I counted right. A double grab your swords.
Okay.
Okay, clearing Aaron's board. One of the things I do wish we knew is how many goats were remaining. I keep bringing up the goat because, the goat could be the closer here.
Oh, yeah.
2 goats represents 19 lore, so. All right, Kris now asking how many cards left in the deck. He's clearly thinking about...
just forcing multiple whole new worlds, basically?
Yeah, milling. Let's take this moment to talk about another term in TCG history. The term mill is a term that's used to describe going through your opponent's deck. You could be making them remove cards from their deck and putting them straight in the discard pile, but at the very least, you're reducing your opponent's deck size. This comes from another Magic the Gathering card called Millstone, which is one of the old Magic card. I believe it originated in Antiquities. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it may be original to Beta. But this card forced your opponent to take 2 cards from the top of their deck and put it in their discard pile. And so a strategy became reducing your opponent's deck down to 0 to win the game that way. And so the term mill is around for that reason, and it refers to reducing your opponent's deck to 0 to win the game.
Nice.
The guests will be on stage in about the next 5 minutes. Thank you.
It is also a shortened term for 1,000.
That is true.
All right, here we go. Aaron with an empty table. Kris with some cards in front of him, but a 10 lore deficit for him, trying to get up to 20. Let's see if Aaron can shut it down there. Okay, when I said 10, I meant actually 11, because with Ursula right there, Kris is going to lose a lore.
Have a look at that. So played Ursula, and unless I missed it, it's looking like Aaron is choosing... Nope, he is not foregoing the card draw. Okay, so Aaron clearly happy to take the card and not worried about the mill at this point, just looking to close it out and making sure he has the cards necessary to do so.
There's
the goat. Okay, like we said, the goat representing 1 lore entering play, representing another lore leaving play. So Aaron getting closer. Another
There's
fox.
a bounce.
Bounce the goat.
Goat.
17. So we now know again there's a 2 lore represented in Aaron's hand. So now, and there's Olaf, which is
Just
great.
A lovely snowman.
It is. I mean, and it seems silly to play Olaf at this point in the game. You don't usually see these 1 lore characters. They're much better to ink them sometimes, but it's critical right here because now with the goat representing 2 lore are on the board, 1 lore on the fox or Olaf could put it over the edge. So forcing Kris to react to everything to be prepared in hand.
Wow.
Oof.
Okay.
There's Flaversham, probably going to get rid of a Popsicle. Looking for cards that he can use to reduce the board presence here. He has to get rid of Ursula with some sort of effect like Hades, sending it to the Inkwell, but then also has to get rid of 2 1-cost characters. He can leave 1 on the board. He can leave 1 on the board probably safely and get to another turn, but any lore at this point is painful.
So Judy hops.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Kris is clearly drawing for answers. He's having to use a lot of his ink to look for those answers. So even if he draws them,
And
there's
that's
nothing
it.
available, and there's the concession.
The handshake, and there we go. Congratulations to Aaron for the victory, making it to that Final 4. Welcome, Kris. Welcome. I'm sorry about the game. It was a rough one, but wow,
it's all fine.
what a match. We're going to slide forward a little bit here. We'll get you on the microphone.
Sure.
Congrats on the finish. I mean, 100 players to make it into the top 8 and to have games that close is like bonkers.
Yeah.
Can you? I just want to ask like broadly, those games were so epic. It was so tight. What are you thinking coming out of that?
To be honest, I'm just really happy to get this far. I really didn't expect it, to be honest. I'm playing a 64-card deck because
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I just wanted to see what would happen, and I got this far, and I was really surprised,
Absolutely. Well, you did it. You put up a hell of a fight. I will say it was a lot of fun watching you guys go back and forth. And that second game, I mean, that had to be tough for you. Like, that had to be mentally draining. We were watching it, and I mean, you were so close for so long, and he just kept eking you out. But I mean, you were able to take that one.
Yeah, that was the toughest match I've had in this thing. It was insane. I felt like I just need 1 card to live, and I can get it. And it's like for 4 turns, he just kept doing everything right.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, that is part of the game. It is reliant on the draw, what you have in your hand. There is a randomness to it that obviously we encountered just then. So.
But I think that's one of the fun parts of it,
Yeah.
That randomness. You never know what's really going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how did your journey into Lorcana begin? What got you started into this?
Oh man, well, I saw it at my local game store, just a tournament happening on a little blackboard thing, and I spoke with my girlfriend about it, and she was really into it. She's actually what got me into it because she's like, oh, I love Disney, I love Belle, which is why I was playing Belle in the deck.
Nice, nice.
And we've just been taking this time ever since it started about a month after, and just collecting as many cards as we can, collecting all the product we can, and just getting everything. And I'm just really happy to be able to be at this level and just wow.
Sweet. Well, congratulations. It's been awesome watching you.
Thank you.
People really enjoyed your match. A lot of fans. Out of curiosity, is there a way people can follow you if you do more of these tournaments on social media or anything? Or
Actually, no. I never thought about that. But
okay.
I'll think about creating something like that.
Yeah.
Well, are you
that'd be
looking
fun.
forward to the official tournaments happening pretty soon? Are you going to try to go to those?
Oh yeah. If I can, I definitely will. But I'm also in college, so I got to focus on that too.
All right. Well, what are you studying in college right now?
Computer science.
Okay. So, did you feel like your Lorcana experience has given you some, or maybe your computer science experience has given you an edge on the Lorcana experience?
I think in terms of critical thinking, yeah, like I would take time to just think of what my play should be, just like my opponent was. And it's the same thing I do in computer science, where I take time to think about what I should be doing and just going from there and trying to test it out and see what happens.
That's fantastic. That is great. Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I mean, thanks so much. Any other closing thoughts coming out of that? Like, actually, one question. So, describe for us as we get ready for the last match your deck, what it's trying to do, what its script is.
Oh, okay, yeah. So my deck is a blue steel resist zoo deck, and in the beginning parts, I'm just trying to establish a good amount of ink and a good amount of characters that can stop them from questing. So I play things like the cost 2 Eric, the cost 2 Jafar, that can do 3 damage to just kill their stuff if they do it. And then from there, once I get to the 3 ink curve, which is my most important thing, I either play Winnie the Pooh or Fishbone Quill. You could also use like Detective Mickey for that, but I just prefer Winnie the Pooh. And you go from 3 to 5 in that one turn, then you play your level 5, and usually you'll either Whole New World or wait. When I'm playing against Ruby Amethyst specifically, I want to wait until they have 6 ink, like get as much draw as they can to get as many Be Prepared as they can, and then just Whole New World it out. You know, like that is the trick, quote unquote, to try to get rid of their Be Prepareds.
Yeah, and we saw you too, like getting Aaron down to like 3 cards, I think, one round. You almost decked him out multiple times. So, I mean, that's...
In that last game, I really wanted to, but my last Whole New World just wasn't there.
So close.
Alas. So what is your next tournament? Do you have another one on the docket right now?
Not at the moment. I don't really know what's happening next for it. You know?
Okay,
but
all right.
I will look into it.
All right, well, it looks like there's going to be one in Denver we saw earlier, actually. So if you want to make it out to Denver, you can check out that one on Saturday, March 2nd. PPG is running another tournament.
Yeah,
That's going to be a
I'd
good
love to
time.
look for that. Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for playing today. It was a blast watching you, and yeah, it was great seeing something other than just more Ruby Amethyst. So thank you for that,
Yeah,
especially.
congrats on the win. It was great seeing you in the top 8.
Thank you. And thank
Excellent.
you guys, too. This was really awesome.
Excellent.
good.
Best of luck to you in your future endeavors, sir.
Sounds
and
good.
college, too. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
All right.
You guys have a great day.